Hello everyone, welcome to the discussion on medieval India as part of Islands Theory of Columbus series. So if you have not done the question paper, please go to the Telegram group and do the question paper. So this will be a test on medieval India and we'll be discussing the questions now, right? Okay, so we'll start with the questions straight away. So there were 25 questions. I have grouped the questions from similar topics together so that we have a ease of discussion. Otherwise, it will be repetitive, right? So you can see the first question on the screen. Okay, you can see the first question. What is it? It's regarding administration of Sultanate. Okay, so first statement is Diwani Ars was the Department of Military. That is correct. Okay, you had a few very important departments, and most important departments in Sultanate was this Diwani Ars, okay, which was Department of Military. It managed everything related to military. Then you had Diwani Wizarat, okay, Wizarat, which was the Department for Finance. Right, these two are the most important. Then you had few other departments also. The details of the main departments, okay, you had 4 or 5 main departments, is given in the handout by Island IS that would have been uploaded in your Telegram channel already. Please go through that. There is a detailed discussion on what administration of Sultanate and Mughals. So questions will be asked from there. So please go through that. Okay. The second one, codes and mukaddams. Okay, codes and mukaddams were intermediaries who helped collect revenue from farmers. That is correct. Okay, that is also correct because codes, mukaddams, and you had another section of people known as chowdhuries. Okay, codes, mukaddams, chowdhuries. These were the people who collected revenue on behalf of Sultanate from people and gave it to state officials. Okay, that is how the system worked. So there was at the village level, these people were there who were only semi-officials. Okay, they were not officially state appointed, but they collected revenue, something like Zamindars later did. Okay, and they would give it to the state. So codes, mukaddams, and chowdhuries. Remember three names. Okay, that is also given in a handout. So these two are correct. Then Tughlaq started the practice of revenue farming to collect taxes. That is also correct. Towards the end of Sultanate, that Sultanate system was degrading, especially towards the end of the period of Tughlaq's, Firoz Shah Tughlaq's period. So they started the farm to enable fast revenue collection. What they did is they would give they would collect advance amounts of money from people and they would give it to give revenue collection rights to those people. Okay, instead of estimating it every year, then collecting it from farmers, they would simply buy money from a person and give revenue collecting rights of a region to that person. Okay, that is known as revenue farming. Okay, in the Mughal era, was sometimes this practice was there. It was called as ijara. Okay, so that was in the Sultanate period also. So 1, 2, and 3. That is the correct answer. D. Now question number 2 is regarding the period of Delhi Sultans. Okay. Again, so first statement is the reign of Delhi Sultans witnessed rise in urbanization in India. Rise in urbanization in India. That is correct. Okay. Because whenever there is stability and there is agriculture development, there will be urbanization. Okay. You have seen that throughout various periods. Sultanate period and Mughal period also was a period where urbanization increased, right? And what? You had many new cities like Agra, Delhi, right? All these cities came to the forefront. Devagiri, new cities came to the forefront during the period of Sultanate. So it was a period of urbanization. The second, the conflicts between nobles and sultans was a major cause of decline of Delhi Sultanate. That is also correct. Why? Why? Because if you look at the period of decline, okay, you had towards the period of Tughlaq itself, you had some nobles declaring independence and then creating new kingdoms in Deccan, and which later became Bahmanid kingdom. Okay, it was from a section of nobles or from Sultanate who created Bahmanid kingdoms. Okay. Similarly, towards the end of period of Lodhis, okay, it was in fact some officials of Lodhi, Ibrahim Lodhi, that called Babur to India. Okay, they said that Daulat Khan Lodhi and many other officials conspired together to invite Babur from Central Asia to India, right? And Babur came, and the rest is history. Now, so that was one of the main conflicts. One of the reasons for that was the conflicts was that in Sultanate, there was no clear law that what the next Sultan would be the son or son of the current Sultan. There was no clear law like that. So there was always hope for nobles to remove the Sultan or become the Sultan after the death of the current Sultan. Right. That is why there were many dynasties consistently during this period. At the same time, during Mughals, it was a single line of succession. It was always the sons of emperors who became the kings. There was no such rule in Delhi Sultanate. So there was always conflicts, right? Then Sultanate armies defeated Cholas and conquered Madurai, which is incorrect because Madurai was the capital of Pandyas. By the period of Sultanate, invasion into the south, which happened during the period of Alauddin Khalji. It was Alauddin Khalji who was the first Sultan to invade beyond Deccan. Okay, he invaded his armies came beyond Deccan into Karnataka and well into Tamil Nadu, right? And these armies defeated who? The Pandyas of Madurai, who were the most dominant dynasty there. They were defeated and they sacked Madurai, and a lot of booty was taken back to Delhi. Right, so that is the answer. So which makes the correct answer to be 1 and 2 only. Okay, then during the period of Delhi Sultanate, Mukti was a term that indicated a person who held a iktha. Okay, there was another term for iktadar. Okay, there was another term for iktadar. Another term given was wali. Okay, wali was another term for the same person. Okay, Mukti, Wali, Iktadar, they were all people who got iktas from the Sultan. Okay, so they were basically nobles. Okay, who administered territories on behalf of the Sultanate. Okay, right. Now we'll move to the Cholas. Okay, there were a couple of questions from Chola period. So a lot of details regarding village administration, especially that of Brahmadaya villages, is given in Uttaramerur inscription. This is given in the NCERT. Okay, because Uttaramerur inscription is the most important inscription from the Chola period, from which we get the information regarding Brahmadaya villages. Okay, it details the whole process of selecting the council of administration. Okay, what was Brahmadaya villages? Brahmadaya villages were the villages that were given to Brahmins. Okay, Brahmadaya means land given to Brahmins. Now, administration of these villages was done by a council, okay, of Brahmins, okay, council of Brahmins, and there was a whole process of clear-cut system of electing officials to this council, which was known as Sabha, okay, and this process was detailed in Uttaramerur inscription. Okay, that is why it is very important. And this inscription is also given in NCERT. Clearly, okay. So answers D. Now, question number 20. We'll move to question number 20. With reference to all administrative system, UR refers to, okay, that will be assembly of tax-paying residents of an ordinary village. Assembly of tax-paying residents of an ordinary village. Okay, similar to we discussed about Sabha, right? It was a council of Brahmadaya for Brahmadaya villages. Now there were villages which were not given to Brahmins. Okay, there were villages with mixed caste groups. Okay, it was known as Vella and Vagai villages. Okay, now for that groups we had councils. Okay, and those villages were simply known as Ur. Okay, and the council of that, assembly of that also was also often called as Ur. Okay, so that it was a assembly of tax-paying residents of ordinary village who created councils for routine administration. Okay, that is how the system under Cholas worked. Okay, now a group of villages were often often grouped together to form a Nadu, and it had its own administrative council known as Nadu. Okay, so you had Ur, which was ordinary villages, you have Brahmadaya villages, and then together many of such villages will come under Nadu. Okay, that is how the system worked. From there on, there was administrative systems at district level and everything, right? So this is how the administrative system worked. Okay, there was self-governed village councils called Ur and Sabha. Right, now we have questions from Vijayanagara Empire. Question number 5 is regarding, first one is Amaranayakas. Okay, Amarnayakas were military commanders who were given territories to govern. That is correct. It was very similar to the Ikta system. Okay, very similar to Ikta system. Military commanders given territories, they would collect taxes, conduct administration. Some of the taxes collected would be paid to the king as tribute. Okay, and they were supposed to serve the king whenever there was war. Okay, they would have to contribute men and horses. Okay. Right, so that is correct. Then village affairs were conducted through Ayagas. That is also correct. Now, what happened is we talked about Nadu during Chola period. Okay, they were all independent, sort of self-governing systems. Now, by the period of Vijayanagar Empire, in many areas, like in Tamil region, this system had collapsed. Okay, so what in under Vijayanagar system, a new system came, which is known as Ayagar system, because in this a group of families, okay, group of people were given small plots of land in villages, okay, and they would be given tax-free lands, okay, and in return they would conduct administration. Okay, for example, a lot of village headmen, okay, during this period were accumulated through the Ayagar system. Okay, they would be given given lands in Tamil region. They would go there, cultivate those lands, take the revenue, and in return they would administer the village. They would collect the revenue from the village. So there were that was one example. There were many officials were given, for example, people who were in charge of village security. Okay. Similarly, given tax-free lands, they would do it for the state. Okay, that is how the Ayaga system worked. So it was a system of village affairs, village governance during the period of Vijayanagar. It was an innovation under Vijayanagar Empire. It was not there during Chola period. So it was an evolution from Nadu and Sabha Ur of what Chola period, right? Then Vijayanagara ruler Krishnadevaraya and Mughal ruler Akbar were contemporaries. That is incorrect, because Krishnadevaraya term was somewhere between 1509 and 1529. Okay, Akbar was not born then. Okay, so that is incorrect. So your answer is A, 1 and 2 only. Okay. Now consider following statements. Domingo Pace, Ibn Battuta, Abdul Razak Samarkandi. Okay. Who among the following travelers visited the Vijayanagar Empire during the reign of Krishnadevaraya? Right. So the answer is Domingo Pace is there, right? Then Ibn Battuta is not there. He visited India during the period of what? Muhammad bin Tughlaq, when Vijayanagar Empire was not even formed. Okay, it was only during the later phase of Muhammad bin Tughlaq that Vijayanagar Empire was formed. Okay, then Abdul Razak Samarkandi, he was a Persian traveler who visited Vijayanagar, but it was not during the period of Krishnadevaraya. It was during the period of another main king of Vijayanagar known as Devaraya II, okay, who lived around 70 years before Krishnadevaraya, right? So answer is 1 only. Okay, you have to know the names of the travelers who visited Vijayanagar. Okay, there are a couple of travelers. Okay, of this Niccolo Conti and Abdul Razak. Okay, they visited Italy, from Italy and Persia. They visited during the period of Devaraya. Okay, Devaraya II. Devaraya II. Okay, while the other travelers like Barbosa and Domingo Pace visited. They were both from Portugal. They visited during the period of Krishnadevaraya. So Barbosa and Pace are the two travelers who visited during the period of Krishnadevaraya. Nunis came after the death of Krishnadevaraya during the period of Achyutaraya. Okay, that is when Nunis, for now Nunis came. Nikitin is more famous for his detailed accounts of period in Bahmanid Empire, which was contemporary of Vijayanagar. So it's not known for traveling to Vijayanagar, but to Bahmanid Empire. Okay. So anyway, you have to know this. Domingo Pace visited India and general Vijayanagar during the period of Krishnadevaraya. Always remember that he has given a detailed description of the city of Vijayanagar and also what city of Vijayanagar and also the emperor himself, how Krishnadevaraya looked and everything. And it is given in NCRTs multiple times. So remember that name. Okay. The question number 24 was regarding Vijayanagar Empire. So it was founded during the rule of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Okay. That is correct. Okay, it was formed towards the end of Muhammad bin Tughlaq's rule by two brothers. Okay, Harihara and Bukka. Harihara and Bukka. Okay, and they were the first kings of Vijayanagar. They founded the dynasty known as Sangama dynasty, which was the first dynasty of Vijayanagar. Harihara Raya and Bukka Raya. Right? It was during the rule of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Right? Somewhere in 1330s. Okay, 1340s. Now, second statement is Krishnadevaraya authored Telugu work Amukta Malyada. Yes, that is also correct. Okay. It means garland. Okay. The term Malya means garland. The term is related to some garland. Okay, that is the meaning of that work. Right. So, first statement is correct. Second statement is also correct. So, answer is C, both 1 and 2. Okay. Now we will move to Mughals, questions on Mughals. So question number 6 is consider following statements about Mughal architecture. Okay. Charbagh was a feature of early Mughal architecture. That is correct. Okay. The Mughals were highly inspired by Persian styles and everything. So what is Charbagh? It is the concept of a garden. Okay. Everything was decided in the shape of a four-sided garden. Right. Usually. If there is a tomb, it would be placed in the middle of a four-sided garden. Okay. So Charbagh, that is correct. You can see Charbagh in the designs of what? Humayun's tomb. Okay, so that is correct. Then Buland Darwaza was built by Humayun to commemorate his victory over Sher Shah Suri. That is incorrect. Okay, because Buland Darwaza was built by Akbar in Fatehpur Sikri to celebrate his victory over Gujarat. Okay, victory over Gujarat. So that is incorrect. Then third one, Humayun's tomb, which is in Delhi, is an example of garden tomb and features a double dome. That is correct. Okay, it is one of the first monuments, which is an example of garden tomb in India. Okay, and it is also an example of double dome. Okay, double domes were very rare in India, but by the time of Mughals, it became very common. Okay, so that is correct. So answer is 1 and 3 only. Okay. Question number 7. With reference to Mughal administration, consider following statements. Land revenue was the most important source of state income. That is correct. Subsystem was developed by Raja Todamal for calculating land revenue. That is also correct. Okay. The Sabti system. Okay. Also known as what? Also known as Dasala system. Okay. Dasala system. Those are the two popular names. Which was the base? It was created during the period of Akbar and till the period of Aurangzeb. This was the basis of Mughal revenue system. Okay. And regarding the first statement, always remember for almost all the empires during ancient and medieval period, land revenue was the most important source of income. Okay. Unlike the modern period, there was no tax on services or taxes on. There was taxes, but collection was not as efficient as that of land revenue. So every empire survived because of land revenue. Okay. So right. So that is a very general statement and very guessable. So first one is correct, second one is correct. Answer is both 1 and 2. Okay. Question number 8. The term Mansabdar was a grade system used by the Mughals to fix rank, salary, and military responsibilities. That is correct. Okay. So how did Mansabdari system work? How did it work? Basically, it was a system of ranking officials. Okay. It was a system of ranking officials. Now, how did it work? It had two parameters. Okay. One parameter designated the rank of the official, proper rank. Okay. That was called Sat. Okay. Sat value or Sat number. Okay. The second part of Mansabdari rank was known as Savar. Okay. Now, Savar was the number of soldiers that you have to maintain. Okay. So if you are an official, you will have a Mansabdari rank. Within that rank, you will have two sub ranks known as Sat rank and Savar rank. Now, Sat rank determined your position in the court. Okay, for example, if you are a prince, your Sat rank would be higher than almost all the officials. Okay, but your Savar rank will depend on your position or your closeness to emperor. Savar depended on your military capabilities. Okay. For example, a person like Tansen will be very high on the Sat rank because that was his rank. He was very close to emperor. So you had higher Sat rank. Okay, and that means he was a high Mansabdar, but his Savar rank would be lower because he did not have to maintain what army troops. So it had two subsystems under a system known as Mansabdari. Okay, this is how everything was created. So it had your Sat rank would determine your rank and salary, while your Savar rank would determine your military responsibilities and benefits. Right? That is how it worked. Now, how were these Mansabdars paid? They were given revenue assignments. Revenue assignments called Jagirs. Okay, so basically Mansabdars became Jagirdars also. Now, how did it work? You will be given a Jagir. So, for example, if I am a official Mughal court and my Mansabdari rank is 10,000, which is very high, I would be given, say, a province of Bihar. Okay, the revenue of Bihar as Jagir. Okay, and every revenue from that Jagir would come to me. Okay, it would come to me. That is how the system worked. But it is not, here was the difference. It was not necessary that I had to go to Bihar and administer. There was a clear system in Mughal administration where there was a revenue system up to the district, sub-district level. So people, there were officials up to sub-district level. They would collect the revenue. They would keep accounts. Okay, they would send the revenue to the treasury, and from there I would get the salary. Okay, so there was no necessity that even if I am a Mansabdar, I had to go and administer the place. Okay, that is the main point. Okay, so I had not have to go there, and this was transferable. Today I will be given the Jagir of Bihar. Tomorrow I may be given, if I fall out with the emperor, I may be given the Jagir in Rajasthan, which will not be productive. So that is how the system worked. Okay, it could be transferred. It was not hereditary. Okay, it was not necessary that my Mansabdari would give to my Jagir would be given to my son. Depend on my rank. If I was a high ranker, I will get a very good Jagir. If my son does not make it to high ranks, he will be given only a minor Jagir. Okay, so that is how the whole system worked. Okay, so that is also correct. So both 1 and 2 is the answer. Okay. Continue with the Mughal questions. Now regarding historiography of Mughals. Okay. So we had Akbar Nama, Abul Fasal, Badshah Nama, Abdul Hamid Lahori, Babar Nama, Gulbadan Begum. Okay, so Akbar Nama is basically the history of Mughals till Akbar and mainly focused on the period of Akbar. It is the most important text to come out of the Mughal period and very detailed in its information also. And that was written by Abul Fazl, okay, who was a courtier and one of the Navaratnas of Akbar. Okay. Second book, important book is Badshah Nama, written during the period of Shah Jahan by Abdul Hamid Lahori. Very important book. Okay. Again, details the period of Shah Jahan. Another one is Babar Nama, which was written by Babar himself. Okay. Always remember of the various namas, Akbar Nama, Akbar Nama, Badshah Nama were written by other people. Babar Nama and Jahangir Nama. Okay, Babar Nama and Jahangir Nama were written by themselves. Okay, they were autobiographical works. So Babar Nama was written by Babar. Jahangir Nama was written by Jahangir. Humayun Nama was written by, incidentally, by a woman who was Humayun's sister. Okay, her name was Gulbadan Begum. Okay, she was part of. He was Humayun's sister and is notable for writing his biography. Okay, so Humayun Nama was written by Gulbadan Begum. Baba Nama was written by Baba. Other ones are correct. Okay, so answer is A, 1 and 2 only. Okay. Okay, there is also another work named as Alamgir Nama, which details the period of Aurangzeb, which is written by a person named as Muhammad Qasim. Okay, that is not as important as these works, but these are the main important works. Okay. Now, with reference to Suhi-Kul. Now, what was Suhi-Kul? Suhi-Kul was it is very easy. Suhi-Kul was the essential religious ideas of Akbar. Okay, so Akbar, after his debates in Ibadat Khana with various religious people, including with Christians and Zoroastrians and everyone, framed his own ideas regarding religion. Okay, he wanted universal peace. Okay, so he created this sect known as Din Ilahi. Okay, all his religious ideas were the basis of such actions. Okay, so who introduced it? Akbar. So this statement is incorrect. The other statements are correct. It stood for universal peace, okay, respect, civility, Okay, the basic idea behind Akbar was that there were some religion problems in almost all religions, but there are good things. Okay, combining that good things, okay, you get Sufi kul. Okay, and by adapting Sufi kul, you could create a harmonious empire. Okay, so that is correct. So the answer is 2 only. Okay. The question number 17. With reference to advent of Mughals in India, consider following statements. First battle of Panipat was fought between Babur and Daulat Khan Lodi. Is it? No. Was it? You know that answer to this. It was not with Daulat Khan Lodi. Daulat Khan Lodi is the person who invited Babur to India. The battle was between Babur and Ibrahim Khan Lodi. Okay. So that is incorrect. The use of gunpowder became common in North India with the advent of Mughals. That is correct. Okay. The Mughal Empire, okay, along with the contemporary empires like Ottoman empires and Safavids, they were known as gunpowder empires because their stability was built on their ability to use gunpowder to the maximum efficiency to conquer other kingdoms and keep them under control. So they were known as gunpowder empires. They were built on the strength of gunpowder, and with the advent of Mughals, it became very common throughout North India. So that is correct. Then Battle of Kanwa was fought between Rana Sangha of Babur and Rana Sangha of Mewar. That is also correct. Okay. This is a battle that is mentioned in what? NCRT. Okay. You have Battle of Panipat, Battle of Kanwa, and then you had another battle known as Battle of Chanderi. Okay, Battle of Chanderi. All these three consolidated Babur's position in India. Okay. So that is correct. Remember these names: Kanwa, Chanderi, and Panipat. Okay. So answer is C, 2 and 3 only. Now question number 21. Consider following statements about Mughal period. Okay. So this was basically regarding the economy of that period. So Zamindars were not allowed to possess personal lands while working as revenue collectors. That is incorrect. That is a logical thing, right? Because Zamindars obviously were landholders in later periods. So obviously they had land control at some point of time. Okay, that is incorrect. Almost all the village intermediaries from the period of Sultanate, your court, Mukaddam, and everyone, they all had their personal lands. Okay, and they cultivated. Often they got these lands as tax-free in return for collecting tax for the empire. They got their personal lands as tax-free. Often, or not always. Okay. So here the personal lands of Zamindar during Mughal period was known as Milkiyat. Okay, Milkiyat, right? It was known as Milkiyat lands, right? Milkiyat lands were personal lands of Zamindar. Okay, often this was tax-free also. That is correct. So that is incorrect. Okay. Now, second one, during Mughal era, slaves were trained and employed as workshops, craftsmen in workshops or karkhanas. That is correct. Karkhanas. That is the term generally used in medieval India for workshops. Now, workshops were not just for what production for abroad, for the personal use of in the palace, in the forts, okay, equipment for production of art-related equipments, or even weapons. You had karganas, imperial karganas. Okay, even big nobles had their own workshops for producing things for them. Okay, so that is known as karkhanas, and usually slaves were appointed. That is also a very general statement. Obviously, in medieval era, when Mughals, there were obviously slaves, and they would certainly have used them in workshops. Okay, very easy to guess. 90% of chances are, if you put right it here, if you assume the statement as right, it will be right. Okay, because it is a very generic statement. So answer is 2 only. Okay. Now question number 23. Akbar started the practice of Jaroka Darshan, which is the emperor showing himself on the balcony of his palace. Okay, this was one of the part of the tradition started by Akbar to sort of assert his attitude towards people who that he was kind. He wanted to see his people every day. So he started this practice of Jaroka Darshan. He would show himself on the balcony. People would come and watch him. Okay, he was a sort of celebrity then, right? So that is how it worked. Okay. Uh, 23 is A. Okay. Now we have questions from the Bhakti cult. Okay, question from the Bhakti cult. Answer following statements regarding Vithala cult. Okay, so what was Vithala cult? The term Vithala. Okay, Vithala was a god. Okay, he's a god, and this deity is inscribed in a main temple is in Pantharpur in Maharashtra. Okay, and this place was the center of Maharashtra Maratha Bhakti movement, starting from a saint known as Jnanadeva. There was a series of Bhakti saints, okay, who composed beautiful poems known as Abhangs and worshipped this god known as Vithala, who lived in this Pandharpur temple. Okay, and they were very different in many ways. Their compositions were in local language, which became the basis for Marathi. They rejected caste system, okay, ritualism, and most importantly, they said that unlike many people who came before, like Shankara, they said that there was no need for renunciation. Most of these saints had their families. Okay, those instances where multiple people from the same family became sort of saints. So they did not believe in the idea of renunciation. They wanted family life to continue. They believed that bhakti was possible within the confines of the family also. So right, so that is first statement is correct. First statement is incorrect. Okay, because it was not from Karnataka region. It was from Maharashtra region or Maratha region. This is correct, and this is incorrect. So answer is 2 only. Okay. Now question number 11. Consider following statements about Bhakti movement. Divya Prabandha was compilation of poems by Nayanas. Okay. Again, this is a statement from Tamil Bhakti movement. Divya Prabandham is a what? Compilation of poems by Alvars. Okay. Basically, it is a Vaishnavite text. Okay. Nayanars are who? Nayanars are Shaivat Bhakti saints. Okay. So this is a text by Alvars. Okay, compilation of poems by Alvars, Nalayiram Divya Prabandham. Right, Nayanas, their work was known as Thevaram and also Tirumurai, okay, which is a compilation, Thevaram or Tirumurai. Okay, so this is incorrect. Now, Guru Nanak's teachings represent elements of Nirguna Bhakti movement. That is correct. Okay, generally Sikhism believes in a formless God. Okay, formless God, or which shows that it is part of the Nirguna Bhakti tradition. Some areas there is also elements of Saguna, but generally the Sikhism adopted the idea of formless God, which represents the Nirguna Bhakti movement. So that is correct. Then Moinuddin Srishti, a Sufi saint, was inspired by the teachings of Kabir. That is incorrect. He lived around 200 years before Kabir. There is a clear timeline given in your handout. Please go through that. You must know the time periods of most important saints. Okay, most important saints. You must be very clearly aware of the most timeline of Sufi saints and Bhakti saints in your handout. It is very clearly given contemporary rulers and also the people, Bhakti saints who live together. So going to that table, you will understand who are the contemporaries and who are not. Please go through that. Right. Question number 12. Consider following various religious traditions and their place of popularity. Okay. So Rishi order. No. Rishi order was in Kashmir. Okay. Rishi order was a Sufi sect from Kashmir. Okay. It is associated with a person known as Nuruddin Wali. It is given in NCERT. Please note that his name was Nuruddin Wali, Sheikh Nuruddin Wali. Okay, and the order was known as Rishi order. Okay, clear. Then Warkari sect. Okay, who are the Warkari sect? The Warkari sect is another name for the sect associated with Vithala temple. Okay, so Warkari sect is also from Maharashtra. Okay. There was a question from UPSC who celebrated Wadi Warkari festival. Okay, it was part of a master following question by UPSC. It is the same Warkari sect. Okay, so that is also incorrect. Alvars are from Tamil Nadu. That is easy. Veerashevas are from Karnataka and followers of Basava. That is also correct. So 1 and 2 are incorrect. That is what you are asked. So answer is B. Okay. Question number 13. Consider following statements regarding Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the founder of Bhakti tradition from Bengal. Okay, he has worked in two areas. One is Vaishnavite Bhakti movement, and the second one is Vedanta traditions. Okay, so he has this Vedanta tradition known as Ajindya Veda Abheda. Ajindya Veda Abheda. That is a Vedanta tradition started by Chaitanya Deva. Just like what your Advaita, his of Shankara, Chaitanya Deva has a Vedantic tradition known as Ajindya Veda Abheda. Okay, and he also is the founder of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Okay, Gaudiya means Bengal. Bengal region was then known as Gauda region. So Gaudiya Vaishnavism is Vaishnavism from Bengal. He was the founder of it. He focused on the love of Krishna and Radha. Okay, that was the base of this movement. So that is correct. Then was he a contemporary of Alauddin Khilji? No, he lived in towards the end period of Sultanate. Let's say the period of Lodhis. Okay, so that is incorrect. So answer is A, one only. Okay, who among the following was not related to Chishti Silsila of Sufism? Okay, who among the following were not related to Chishti Silsila of Sufism? There is a table in NCERT giving clearly the main people of what? Main people of Chishti Silsila. Okay, you can see here. Sheikh Moinuddin. Okay, Sheikh Moinuddin we discussed him. Then Bakhtiyar Kaki. Okay, then Sheikh Faruddin, also known as Baba Farid. Okay, then Sheikh Nizamuddin Aulia, who was a disciple of Baba Farid, and Sheikh Nasruddin Chiraghi Delhi, who was a disciple of Nizamuddin Aulia. Okay, so Baba Farid and Nizamuddin Aulia are both related to Chishti Silsila. Myanmar is a Sufi saint from later periods. Okay, he lived in around the time of Aurangzeb, right? And his sect was known as Kadiri, okay, Kadiri sect of Sufism. So he was not from Chishti Silsila. So answer is 3 only. Okay, he was from Kadiri sect. Okay. So answer is 3 only. Then question number 18. In the context of medieval Indian history, the term Hulia refers to. Okay, Hulia was a descriptive list of soldiers. Okay, it was similar to dark system for horses. A dark system of horses was to ensure that there was no fraudulent activity taking place while soldiers maintained their horses. Okay, so it was a system of branding of horses by quality. Now, Hulia was a descriptive list of soldiers so that Iktadas maintained the number of soldiers required. Okay, otherwise, Iktadas would say that they would have 100 soldiers, but they would only maintain 50 and buy the money from emperor for maintenance of 100 soldiers. So to ensure that does not happen, every soldier had to be created into a description. Okay, it maintained the description of soldiers so that the system could account for all the soldiers. Okay, there was no fraud. Now, question number 19. Now that happened during the period of Sultanate. Okay, now question number 19 is regarding Al-Biruni. Okay, he was a court poet of Muhammad Ghori. Incorrect. He came here. Al-Biruni is one of the first main travelers to come in medieval India from abroad, and he came with the armies of Mahmud of Ghazni. Okay, he came with the armies of Mahmud of Ghazni well before the establishment of Sultanate. He wrote a lot about India. Okay, NCERT has described his teachings mainly. There are two things to note. Okay, what he did is he criticized the fourfold Varna system, okay, which he described as a unique social problem to India. That is, he criticized the fourfold Varna system. That is incorrect. Okay, he did not criticize the fourfold Varna system. Okay, what he said is no, he described it. Okay, but he said that such systems, such fourfold classifications were always there. Okay, they were always there. So you cannot say that you cannot say that it was unique to India. He compared it with Egypt and other countries and said that it was not a unique problem to India. It was always there. Social stratification will always be there. Okay, so he did not criticize the system, but he did criticize untouchability. That is a major point. He criticized untouchability. He said that everything could be purified. So why not? How did people get always impure? That is something he could not understand. So he criticized untouchability, the notion of untouchability, but Varna system he accepted. He said it was not unique to India. Okay. Then he translated several Sanskrit works into Arabic. That is correct. Okay. So answer is 3 only. Then the famous Kailasanath temple at Ellora is attributed to which Rashtrakuta ruler? The answer is Krishna 1. Okay, straight away fact. Okay. The Nastalik. Okay, Nastalik associated with calligraphy. Okay. It is a often used as it was Persian style of calligraphy, often used for decorative purposes. Okay. So that is also correct. So, so answer is D. Sorry, that is, the answer is D. Okay. So thank you everyone. I hope you have written the 2 tests. Okay, please go through the handouts that gave you. Those are the most important areas in UPSC exams. Please go through them. Thank you for this.